Hello, my name is Nicholas Schultz, and I'm going to be running through today a sheep's heart dissection with you. So to begin, we're going to need to make sure that we have all of our materials present. You're going to be sure that you need a scalpel blade, a probe or something else to help you identify the various structures, as well as a pair of scissors to make those fine cuts. Once you have all those materials, we're ready to begin. First off, you want to make sure that you have a pair of gloves. After all, you are handling tissue. Put our gloves on. So the first step that you guys want to make sure is that you have the heart oriented in the correct orientation. You want to make sure that you have your apex pointing down and towards the left. And you want to make sure that your base is pointing superiorly. Once you have it oriented properly, you're able to identify the structures or the various structures that you guys need to know. You can see that we have our left ventricle would be right here, our right ventricle here. Turning the heart over, you'd have your left ventricle again and your right ventricle again. Also, you should be able to identify on the superior portion of the heart, you have the left auricle and the right auricle. Once you have identified all the superficial structures, you are ready to begin your dissection. We're going to start by first putting the blade on the scalpel. I want to make sure that the angles all line up properly. Then, again, making sure that your heart is in the proper orientation, you want to make sure that you cut coronally all the way around. If you are using a scalpel, you want to make sure that you do not do this in a sawing motion. You want to make sure that you just do it in a series of successive cuts, cutting one layer slowly at a time. If you are using a much larger knife, a steak knife, kitchen knife, etc., you can probably make this incision with one cut. But since we're using a scalpel, we're going to make sure that we cut slowly layer by layer. So you want to start above the left ventricle, moving down, moving around, again, cutting layer by layer, don't saw. Okay, once you make that first incision, you want to make sure that you continue to making slow, smooth incisions. Do not saw. It's going to be tough to get through the interventricular septum, but we'll get there. There we are. So you have the option of completely bifurcating the heart entirely, and you can make this cut complete. I'm going to leave it intact so that way we can close it and make sure that we're able to identify the structures properly. So once you've dissected the heart, close it back up and make sure that, again, you have it in the proper orientation, apex down and to the left, base facing superiorly. Once that is done, you can open up the heart and begin to identify the various chambers and structures within. Using your probe, you can go ahead and identify the right ventricle, your left ventricle. Left ventricle is going to have a thicker myocardium around it. Inside, you will be identifying the interventricular septum, which runs between the two ventricles. On here, sometimes you may or may not be able to see the atria. Unfortunately, in this heart, we cannot, but sometimes you will. Your right atria is actually back and posteriorly where my probe is running now. Your left atria is back up in this structure up in here. Okay. Some other key features that you guys will be able to identify is you have your chordae tendineae, which are these fibrous cords that basically run to the valves. You also have your papillary bodies, which run and connect the trabeculae or the chordae tendineae to the valves. And then we can identify the valves themselves. Here we can see our bicuspid valve or our mitral valve or our left atrioventricular valve. Up here in this chamber, you have your tricuspid valve. You have a small piece of it right there. That's your right atrioventricular valve or your right tricuspid valve. Other structures that you guys need to be familiar with is the muscles that line each one of these chambers. The specific muscle type that lines the inside of the ventricles, you have the trabeculae carneae, and the muscle type that lines the atria is the pectinate muscles. So you guys need to be able to identify those. After that, you guys have pretty much identified all relevant structures, and you are done with the sheep's heart dissection.